All right, there he is, the man of the moment. Kim Jong-un, North Korea's leader, has arrived at the summit venue at the Capella Hotel. We just saw visuals of him and his entourage making their way into the venue of what's being described as one of the biggest meetings in modern history. He's all set to meet Donald Trump, the President of the United States. Remember, this is the first time that a meeting between the leaders of these two countries is going to take place since the Korean War. This is, of course, being described by many as an opportunity for history to be made. In fact, President Trump himself said that this is a one shot that Kim Jong-un, the man on your screens right now, has at making things happen. America's end game here is quite clear. It wants North Korea to get rid of its nuclear weapons, its nuclear arsenal. Whereas Chairman Kim's plan is to have the entire peninsula denuclearized and also gain legitimacy for his regime. There is also talk about how Kim Jong-un is focused on bringing more economic prosperity to his people, something that perhaps could be one of the outcomes of today's meeting between him and Donald Trump. Now, the talks are going to begin at 9 a.m. local time in Singapore this Tuesday morning. Now, we're waiting for a first glimpse also of the U.S. President, of Donald Trump. He is on Twitter already. He's already begun to tweet early this morning. He has, of course, used the social media platform to inform his followers that his top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, has suffered a heart attack. He hasn't tweeted yet in specific about anything to do with this particular meeting, but President Trump on Twitter already. We've gotten a chance to see Kim Jong-un, his sister Kim Yong-jo, also in part of that entourage. She arrived separately from Kim Jong-un yesterday in Singapore. These, of course, visuals of the Capella Hotel's exterior, and there he is. Visuals once again of Kim Jong-un arriving at the Capella Hotel. This was just moments earlier when the North Korean leader arrived at the hotel. My colleague Ramesh Ramachandran was detailing how exactly Kim ended up spending his evening in Singapore yesterday. Unlike the U.S. President Donald Trump, who chose to stay huddled in with his advisors at the hotel, Kim Jong-un decided to step out and take a look at the Singapore island, perhaps indicating in some ways that there's more at stake here for President Donald Trump than there is for Kim Jong-un. President Trump has already had a conversation with the South Korean President Moon Jae-in over the phone. Remember, Moon is being described as one of the major factors, a strategic element to this meeting even taking place. He did commit last year in Berlin that he wanted peace to be brought to the Korean Peninsula, that was going to be one of the key focuses of his presidency, and he has managed to make things happen. He met with this man, with Kim Jong-un, earlier this year on a much publicized meeting at the demilitarized zone, which sort of got the ball rolling on the prospect of this meeting which is taking place today. And this one too has come after much up and down, if you will. President Trump cancelling the meeting a few short weeks ago, and then, of course, us hearing that the meeting is once again back on. So for those of us, or those of you, pardon me, who are joining us early this morning, India time, it is just about 4 minutes from when we are expected to see that historic handshake take place. The flags are in place, as is the red carpet, as are the media personnel who've gathered there. Among them, of course, is my own colleague Ramesh Ramachandran. He's right outside the hotel, keeping a bird's eye view for us on proceedings. Ramesh, the import of this meeting isn't lost on anyone. It is a big deal. It's a huge deal in many ways for not just the two countries involved over here or the other partner in all of this, that is South Korea, but really speaking for the region at large. There are so many players involved. There is China, there is Japan. How do you see these major players looking at this meeting, and what are they hoping to get out of it?
Indeed, that's the interesting question to this Trump-Kim summit, Aisha. Every country of consequence in the region and beyond will be keeping a hawk's eye view on the developments at the Capella Hotel behind me here on Sentosa Island in Singapore, with a few minutes to go for the much anticipated handshake between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. As you mentioned, Japan, South Korea, China, Singapore, all countries in the region and beyond, including India for that matter. Remember, India is one of those few countries which has a resident ambassador in Pyongyang, unlike Singapore, which only has a non-resident ambassador.
Ramesh, allow me to come in. I apologize for interjecting there. The US President Donald Trump's cavalcade has also arrived at the hotel, at the Capella Hotel on Sentosa Island. We're going to get our first glimpse of the man who's going to turn 72 on Thursday. Is this going to be an early birthday present for President Trump? Is he going to walk away from this meeting having made history? Well, here he is. He's about to alight from his car, and President Donald Trump, in his usual red tie, has arrived at this historic event. He looks cool as a cucumber, if you ask me. He seems to have everything in place. That is the impression he's been giving to a number of people, isn't it, Ramesh? You were talking, of course, about the regional players in this event. I'll ask you to continue.
Indeed, as I was saying before, all countries of consequence in the region and beyond, be it Japan, be it South Korea, be it China, be it Singapore, the host country, or even India, everybody is keeping a close watch on the developments here, because what is happening here in Sentosa today will have implications for the region and beyond, including India, as I mentioned. Remember, India is one of those few countries which has a resident ambassador in Pyongyang. Unlike Singapore, which has a non-resident ambassador in Pyongyang, India has diplomatic missions both in Pyongyang and in Seoul. To that extent, India is keeping a close watch on the developments of the Korean Peninsula, as well as here at the Capella Hotel behind me in Singapore for the Trump-Kim summit. What flows from the outcome from this meeting will determine the course of the geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region, where India is heavily invested in. Remember, Prime Minister Modi's Act East policies focused on this part of the world, the Southeast Asian and the East Asian economies. To that extent, India will be interested in whatever is happening behind me in Singapore today. Now, that said, the format of the meeting is such that both leaders have converged, have arrived at the Capella Hotel. They'll be entering into a hall from both sides, from two doors, and shake hands for the media present inside and for the world outside as well. And then they will break for a one-on-one meeting along with their translators, interpreters, and then they will have an extended discussion with their respective delegations, followed by a working lunch. So that's the program later this morning. We're waiting to hear from either side about a joint press statement or a joint statement. None of that has been confirmed. We had been expecting a joint press statement, at least from the American side, because Kim Jong-un will be leaving Singapore later this afternoon. So one is not sure whether there will be any briefing by the North Korean side, but the American side, it's expected to be more forthcoming, because remember, Trump is invested time, energy and effort into this so-called deal making. It remains to be seen whether it's successful or not.
Absolutely. That is, the proof is going to lie in the eating of the pudding. We're going to have to wait to see what exactly comes of this meeting. There's been such a build-up to June 12th that's been taking place all through this year. One can't even begin to imagine that the year started off with the barbs still being exchanged, and we're at this point at the midway mark. We're not even halfway through the year, but we are talking about the idea of a deal being brokered between the United States and North Korea. And what a man to imagine, Ramesh, as being the linchpin perhaps, or at least the central focus of this meeting. President Trump, who's managed to annoy many of his allies, he's done it on his way over to Singapore right now, from Quebec in Canada. Canada itself, Germany, many other countries extremely annoyed with the president's stance on trade tariffs. And here he is reaching out to what's being considered for the longest time one of the United States' biggest enemies.
Absolutely, Aisha. You couldn't have put it better. Donald Trump arrived here in Singapore straight from the G7 summit in Canada, where he was the odd man out. Remember, all the other six leaders had sort of almost ganged up against Trump, saying that his policies are hurting the transatlantic alliance. But Trump remained steadfast to his ideals, his policies, and says there can be no backtracking, at least for the immediate future. But that said, the paradox here is that both leaders, both Trump and Kim Jong-un, will be looking to reset their perception index, the way the world perceives them. Trump has been seen as a deal breaker. He's pulled America out of the Paris Climate Change Accord. He's pulled America out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He's pulled America out of the Iran nuclear deal. So this is his moment in history to tell the world, tell his critics, tell his skeptics that he can sign a deal, and a better deal than Obama and any other Republican or Democrat predecessor. So it is his moment in the sun, so to speak. At the same time, Kim Jong-un will be looking to gain legitimacy as a legitimate ruler of North Korea. He's craving for attention, recognition as a nuclear weapons power, and he'll seek to drive home that point when he shakes hands with Donald Trump.
All right, Ramesh, as we speak, that meeting has begun. The handshake is taking place. Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump there shaking hands.